What's up, faithful? You are listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian. He's Al. And Al, it's Thursday. 49ers play again on Sunday, and it's a historic matchup. I'm not sure if you recognize the historic nature of this matchup. This is the first time in NFL history that a quarterback drafted with the number 1 overall pick is facing off against a quarterback drafted with the last overall pick. So that, to me, is probably the most interesting storyline between 49ers and Rams, because it has been a long time of domination, and we are going to get into our preview of that game. But first, I know you wanted to touch on what's going on out there in New York with our friend Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers, 4 snaps as a New York Jet before he tore his Achilles.
I got to ask you, when you're
outcome.
watching that game, what went through your head when you saw that? Did you watch it live?
Well, I did. I watched it live, and I was like, I saw him go down, and then I was like, oh, he's injured. And then I was like, I wonder if it's like an ankle, right? And then he just didn't come back, and you're like, gross, right? Because as 49er fans, we know what it's like to lose a very, very important player to that turf at that stadium. That's where Nick Bosa tore his ACL. But then later that night, I actually was on TikTok. I love TikTok, big fan of TikTok. And somebody posted a video, and it was a zoom in of the injury or the play, and they slowed it down, and you could literally see his Achilles rupture in the video. You could see the calf just like ripple, and you're just like, oh no.
It was so brutal. Because I'm a New York guy, and
yeah,
I have a lot of friends who are Jets fans and grew up with the Jets and stuff like that. And they're just, they're a train wreck all the time. This was just, if you're an NFL fan, you're watching that game and you just see the emotion in the stadium. It's just going crazy. It was 9/11. Rodgers comes out with the flag. There's just all this awesome for the league. It was awesome, right? It was a really cool atmosphere. There was all this excitement. In 4 plays in, it turns into a fucking Greek tragedy. 4 plays in. And he goes down, and you see him try to get up. And at first I thought high ankle sprain. That was my first thing.
Stood up, by the way.
Because I don't want Aaron Rodgers to be hurt. I don't want any these marquee players. It's bad for the league. So I'm initially just thinking like high ankle sprain, he's going to be back a couple months. Jets will be whatever, 4-4, whatever, he'll come back. And then you see the replay, and like you said, you could see the calf muscle, and you're like, oh shit. So my first thought was, I'm playing against Rodgers in fantasy, and I'm down by 2 points, and I had Dalvin Cook against Aaron Rodgers. That was my first thought, because I'm a selfish asshole. And I ended up coming back and winning a game I had no business winning.
Yeah, you did.
But my second thought was, this sucks for the league, and it sucks for the Jets, who have a really good team. But then I started to think, because everything comes back to the Niners with us, right? The Jets are in a position right now the Niners did not want to be, and I think feared to be in. And that's why they made the moves that they did, and I'll explain. So the Jets now have this awesome defense flying around the other night. Made Josh Allen look terrible. Allen looked as shook as I've seen him play in a while. And he's a careless quarterback anyway, but he looked a little shook the other night. And they have Breece Hall just ripping off 80-yard runs off an ACL surgery, and Garrett Wilson with this amazing catch. And they're this really, really fun team. And now you got to hand it over to Zach Wilson, the guy they can say what they want to. They don't have faith in. They didn't even let him to throw the ball the other night. And now you have to hand the keys over to him. And I just wonder if they had said to themselves, listen, we are ready to win now. Not working with the kid. Maybe it will somewhere else. We got Aaron in here. Let's make a play for Jacoby Brissett or Taylor Heineke. Just somebody that isn't going to set the building on fire if
Kirk Cousins
he goes down. Well, Kirk Cousins next year maybe, but I'm talking like to back up Aaron Rodgers, right?
Oh, sorry.
Like beginning of the season, right?
Sorry.
So yeah, who knows next year? Maybe they will go to Kirk Cousins next year.
Well, I meant this year.
Maybe Cousins, Stafford. Who knows if those teams start out 1-3? Yeah, maybe. But so anyway, so now you have this quarterback you don't want, and you're scared to even let throw the ball. And I think that's kind of where the Niners were. And that, again, you can have your opinions on Trey Lance, and he didn't play a lot. He could end up being a very, we don't know. But I feel like the Niners were thinking like, look, if Purdy is not healthy or goes down, we need somebody who could steer the ship. And they felt better about Sam Darnold than they did about Trey Lance. So it makes you kind of think like, not that I want to rehash the move, but just in terms of what they did. Okay, this is a situation that the Niners feared they could be in. And did the Niners insulate themselves enough if this happened? So I just thought that was kind of interesting because my head went right there to like, oh, so the Niners didn't want to be here with the quarterback they didn't trust. And no matter what anybody thinks of Trey Lance, the 49ers felt Sam Darnold was a better fit to take over this team if disaster happened. And that's kind of where my head went with it. But yeah, it sucks for the league. And, we'll see where it goes with that team or whatever. But for the Niners, they feel better if disaster strikes that Sam Darnold would be the guy, as opposed to a Trey Lance / Zach Wilson type.
I just really, really felt bad for Robert Saleh. Like the camera panned to him after Rodgers went back down to the ground, and the look on Saleh's face, I was like, this man looks like he might cry. Like, yeah. It just hurt my heart to see him just like, you have got to be shitting me. That's exactly what I think he was thinking, because like you said, they weren't, I don't think that they envisioned in any scenario being without Aaron Rodgers this season. Even last year, Rodgers played through some injuries. He didn't play as well as he did the previous 2 seasons, which were MVP level seasons. So that makes sense. But he's been a healthy player. He's not missed very much time. And so you got to go into that thinking, look, we're going to get a full year of Aaron Rodgers. And, as much as they don't believe in or they don't trust Zach Wilson, I think that they don't believe in him or trust him right now. But I really do think that part of the overall plan for them was to bring Rodgers in for at the very least this season. But even Rodgers said, this isn't a one and done for me. I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 years. And then even in an interview, was like, and then hand it over to Zach Wilson for another 10 to 15 years. Right. And so, I think the Jets are in a different position than the 49ers would have been, right? If the roles were reversed and it was still Brock Purdy that was QB1 and he went down and Trey Lance was QB2, it's not the same scenario as it is for the Jets. And here's why. And I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks, but one of the things that I was most impressed with, and I know this is a 49ers podcast and we'll stop talking about the Jets in a second, but one of the things I was most excited about or most interested in seeing was how much Aaron Rodgers took Zach Wilson kind of under his wing, was coaching him up, in camp, helping him, and I think for Zach Wilson, there's probably not a better scenario for him right now than what is going to happen, which is he's going to be QB1 there, but he has a Hall of Fame quarterback who is going to be there with him through that process, probably on the headset with him during games, in meeting rooms with him, and Rodgers this isn't a Jordan Love situation. Rodgers joined this team, knew that he was going to be QB1, knew that they weren't looking to replace him. So he wasn't concerned with Zach Wilson. He wasn't concerned that this team is going to try and replace me with Zach Wilson. So he embraced him. And I don't think that would have been the case with the 49ers, because Brock Purdy's in the same boat that Trey Lance is in. He's not a almost 40-year-old Hall of Fame quarterback. He is still a second-year player versus Lance's third-year player. So I do think that the Jets are in a little bit better position, but it'll be interesting to see if Zach Wilson, with the help of Aaron Rodgers, can at the very least play better than he did last year. And if they did, then that's probably enough for them to win games, because like you said, that defense looks incredible.
Yeah, they looked to me like they were terrified of him. It was just so bad.
Yeah, especially that game for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting. But you mentioned Purdy, and I wanted to bring up some milestones, because I still don't think that Brock Purdy is really, I guess, amongst the fan base, getting the credit that he deserves. I think he's starting to get it nationally a little bit. I think nationally a little bit more. I think people are starting to creep. Like you heard Micah Parsons say he was a top 15 quarterback, and he thinks they're starting to come out a little bit. So couple things that came out in NFL communications, because I get those emails. So with 2 touchdown passes, Purdy will join Billy Volek as the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era with at least 2 TD passes in each of his first 7 career starts. He can also become the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era with a passer rating of 95 or higher in each of his first 7 career starts. Purdy, who'll be 23 years old and 264 days old on Sunday, can join Patrick Mahomes and Dan Marino as the only quarterbacks ever under the age of 24 to record a passer rating of 95 or higher in 7 consecutive starts. And then Matt Mayoko put out a tweet that said Brock Purdy completed 9 of 10 for 151 yards and 2 TD passes on passes 10 to 19 air yards in week 1. He had a plus 28.5 completion percentage over expected, according to Zebra Sports, which is the best single game completion over expected to the intermediate area since week 16 of 2020. He is doing top level things. Is he elite physically? No. You know what, Brian? Does it fucking matter?
No.
I don't think so, because what he's doing right now, and Jeff Garcia talked about this, and I heard Steve Young again, I just think it's starting to creep up a little bit now, a little bit more like nationally and with the bigger names talking about it. His poise, his understanding of the game, his confidence. There was one play, I was just looking at highlights. A lot of people remember the play where he did the spin move to get away from, I think it might have been Minkah Fitzpatrick.
It was Minkah Fitzpatrick,
to roll out and complete a pass. But there's just one play. I don't know who was rushing, but it was coming from the right side. And all he did was step to the left. It bought him about a second. And he hits Ayuk for what I believe was a first down for a nice chunk. Just pocket movement, not scrambling, not running all around, not throwing off his back foot, just pocket movement. And it made me think about some of the great quarterbacks ever. Not that I'm saying he's going to be this, but Tom Brady was one of the best movers in the pocket I've ever seen. Step up, step left, step right, avoid the rush. And he wasn't mobile at all. Just seeing Purdy do little things like that and just having the awareness that he has, he's kind of just understands what's going on in the field and he has that feel. That's got to give you so much hope as a 49ers fan that, yeah, you don't have a guy with a rocket arm who's going to run like Justin Fields and throw 60 yards like Josh Allen. It doesn't matter. He's smart. He's terrific with intermediate throws. He puts the ball where it's supposed to go. And as long as he can stay healthy and upright, I think they're in a great position, man. And I really feel like he's probably a top 15 quarterback already. And I think if we wanted to go through the quarterbacks, and I challenge anybody to do it who's listening to the show, go through every single starting quarterback and see where you could put him. He's probably 15-ish, which is saying a lot after 9 starts or whatever it's been.
Well, and I think one of the things that that Purdy is willing to do that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't. Jimmy Garoppolo was really good operating this offense. We know that. He was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL when healthy. And that is largely due to Kyle Shanahan and the offensive system he runs. But also Jimmy Garoppolo is an efficient quarterback. He's a decent quarterback. And look at what he did on Sunday against the Broncos. So, but what Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't willing to do that Brock Purdy is more than willing to do is what I like to, or what I've heard referred to, and I like it this way. He's willing to go for the doubles rather than settling for the singles in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And what that means is in almost every pass play that Kyle Shanahan dials up, there is a shallow, an intermediate, and a deep route, right? There's levels to the route tree. And more often than not, that intermediate tends to be open. The deep, maybe not always, and even the shallow, but the intermediate tends to be, or the intermediate will be open if it's thrown open. And that's what Purdy's been doing. And like you said, 9 of 10 beyond the sticks, right? Which means that he's throwing 10 yards or more down the field, right? That's not dinking and dunking. That is high level quarterback play. But one of the stats that I heard, and I'm not going to get it exactly correct because I don't remember the in terms of the time frame, but Sunday's game in Pittsburgh was the first game, or had less yak yards after the catch than any game in, I think, at least 3 seasons for the 49ers, meaning that the yards that they got weren't because, they dumped it off to Debo in the flats and he ran 40 yards, right? Or anything. they were air yards, right? He was attacking deeper down the field and completing those throws. They were up 20-0 before halftime, right? They ended up going into halftime up 20-7. And then Christian McCaffrey had his long run to open the third quarter. It was 27-7, and the game was ostensibly over. So they weren't even really throwing the ball that much anyway. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is Kyle Shanahan trusts Brock Purdy. He never fully trusted Jimmy Garoppolo, and then he obviously didn't trust Trey Lance. He trusts Brock Purdy, and I think we pointed it out in our recap. But to me, the single play that tells me that he does was that fourth down play where he dialed up a pass to George Kittle as opposed to, a juice run up the middle or anything like that. I don't know that he would have trusted a quarterback he's had in San Francisco to pick up a fourth down with a pass ever. And so it's hard to look at him and think he's an elite quarterback because he doesn't look like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or those guys. But if you watch him play, it's elite level quarterbacking. And I don't see anything that doesn't make it sustainable. And that, I think, is the key. It's not, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's legit quarterbacking. And he is operating this offense at the highest level we've seen under Kyle Shanahan.
In that Jimmy game in week 1 with the Raiders was the most Jimmy Garoppolo game ever.
100%.
His throw was a crushing interception, and then he has a last-minute drive to pull themselves out of the hole that he dug. You know
right.
what I mean?
He's the firefighter that started the fire and then put it out.
Absolutely. And you were talking off before we started recording about, well, what's going to take for Purdy? Is it going to be, does he have to have these great big comebacks? And he did against the Raiders, but he's not in a position where he has to come back because they're putting 30 up on everybody, and they have a really good defense. And I was listening to Haberman and Middlecoff, and they were talking about, I think Tom Brady had something like 7 more fourth quarter comebacks in 20 years than Matt Ryan did in whatever he played. Like Brady played a lot more. And why was that? Because Brady was always ahead. Brady's not going to have a million fourth quarter comebacks because they were throttling people. Yeah. That's what you're getting with the Niners, man. He's had 9 games now where he's played the majority of the games when you consider that Miami game, his first game.
Yeah.
They've scored 30 plus in 7 of them. What else do you want? And the ones that he didn't was a Thursday night game where he had broken ribs,
right,
and against a phenomenal Dallas defense in the divisional round, which happens sometimes in the playoffs. You're not going to put up 40 points against a really good defense in the playoffs, 30 points, whatever. So he's just going out every week and putting up 30. What else do you want? Like, stop nitpicking. That's kind of where I am with it. Just stop nitpicking, enjoy what you have. And if 8 games from now he's exposed, we'll deal with that. But like you said, I don't see any signs of that happening. I also don't see any signs of Brandon Ayuk slowing down this year. Wins Offensive Player of the Week, which was just awesome. Now, he's the 3rd 49ers receiver to win the award in week 1. The only other 2 guys were Jerry Rice in 1994. And against the Raiders, Rice had 7 catches for $169 and 2 touchdowns. He added a 23-yard rush for a touchdown. It's a pretty good day. And then Anquan Boldin, who had 13 catches, 208 yards, and a touchdown in 2013. That great game against the Packers. And Ayuk in this game had 6 receptions and 15-plus yards, and only Tyreek Hill had more in week 1. So he just came out and he had a wide receiver 1 type game, and he was really complimentary of Purdy after as well. All these guys are buying in, and I just think Ayuk and Purdy, this connection is going to continue, and Ayuk's just ready to have just a phenomenal season.
Well, and I mean, I know for Kyle Shanahan, the most impressive play from Brandon Ayuk was the block that he laid on the Pittsburgh cornerback on Christian McCaffrey's long touchdown run. I think Kyle Shanahan probably loved that more than the 8 catches for 100 and however many yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, if none of that happened, but Brandon Ayuk decleated a defender on a Christian McCaffrey run, Kyle Shanahan would have absolutely still thought that Brandon Ayuk had a hell of a game, because that's what it takes to be a receiver in this offense. But also, I think that play specifically is just a microcosm of what this team is about. And this team is about winning at all costs, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a wide receiver, you're going to block your ass off or you're not going to be on the field. But not only that, you want to block your ass off because this team is a cohesive unit with one goal in mind, and that is the Super Bowl. And everything that they've said, everything that they've done up till now and through week one shows that this is the goal. And even Christian McCaffrey said, you know, the urgency is a little bit higher right now. And I think sometimes we think of that word urgency as a bad thing, like it's only urgent because something bad is going to happen if you don't or whatever. But I think more than that, it's urgency in that we know we're really, really, really good. And if we do what we're capable of doing, we are absolutely better than every team we step on the field against. And I think they believe that. And I think they should believe that, because if week one is any indication, if they're not the best team in the NFL, there's one team better. And I don't know who that would be. You can make an argument for Dallas based on how they won their game 40-0. But I still think the Steelers are a better opponent than the Giants. So which one is really more impressive? You know, you could argue either way. And until Travis Kelce gets back, I don't think you can put the Chiefs there. So, you know, the two
Chiefs
most
have
impressive
problems at wide receiver.
Oh,
they
yeah,
do.
big time,
And
big time.
Week one can be a mirage. We all know that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
The AFC teams that we thought were going to be really, really tough to beat, and they still will be. Looks like there's some holes there in spots in week one that you can see that in the NFC maybe is a little closer than we thought with those top three teams. Philly didn't look great in week one, but we've seen what they can do. We know what they can do. And I thought Dallas and the Niners just looked outright scary.
Yeah.
With the way that their defenses can perform. So I've been talking about the Cowboys all year. The Cowboys, before I was like Philly. I think Dallas, if they stay healthy, worry me more than Philly does. Just even law of averages, because again, the Niners have beat them a couple of times. So eventually the ball bounces a different way, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But right now, Dallas is the team to me that I kind of have an asterisk by where they scare me a little bit.
What about the Rams?
They do not scare me, Brian. The Rams do not. Now, if you told me week one Rams and Seahawks are playing each other and the score is going to be 30-13, I thought it would have been the opposite way for sure. But the Rams came out and give them credit, man. Everybody buried them, absolutely buried them, and said that they were done and they were going to be terrible, and they still will be. But for 1 week, they came out and surprised a lot of people. And the first thing I think of that is I think of Jim Tomsula's first game and Chip Kelly's first game when the Niners looked really good in week one too.
Yeah.
And then it all goes to hell pretty quickly. But as long as Stafford's healthy, they're going to be able to put up some points. And you showed it in this game. It was one of those games where you always hear about those late round rookie receivers in camp, and you're like, oh, I'm going to take them late in my fantasy draft, and then they have 7 catches the whole year and don't do anything. But this Puka Nacua, did I say his name?
Puka Nacua, yeah.
10 catches for $119. And Tutu Atwell, who had in a dynasty league for 2 years and cut, decided to finally have a good game. Six catches for 119 yards.
Yeah.
When you think the whole time it's going to be Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson, and Jefferson dropped what would have been a long touchdown, so he might have had a good game if he did that. But these two guys come out of nowhere. Stafford goes 24 for 38 for 334 yards, and they put up 30 points on a Seattle team that some people were talking about as a sleeper team for the Super Bowl. I don't believe that, but that's what some people said. Surprising, but they also couldn't run the ball. They had 40 carries for just 92 yards versus Seattle. And the game was actually 13-7 Seahawks at halftime. And then the Seahawks lost a couple offensive linemen and kind of all hell broke loose, went the other way. So I think, and we'll see if I'm going to be proven wrong, but I think this is one of those week one mirage games where the Rams just look really good. And they're going to come out against the Niners team who beat them by a combined score of 55-23 last year, who sacked Matthew Stafford 9 times last year. And I think the Niners are just it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really ugly.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to dive into, I'm like, how did the Rams beat the Seahawks 30-13? And, you know, I'm not a film guy. I don't have access to the all 22 or anything like that. And so a lot of that just, you know, is kind of looking at the box score, looking at team stats and trying to figure out kind of a theme of the game. And honestly, you know what it feels like? It feels like Sean McVay knew that he was walking into Seattle with the significantly less talented roster than the Seahawks have. Not again that the Seahawks have this ultra talented roster, but they have a more talented roster than the Rams. And their game plan was the game plan that you would have going into a game where you know that you are outclassed almost everywhere on the field. And you look at and then I think Seattle went into this game going, who the hell is on that Rams team? We don't even need to prepare. We're gonna just stomp a mud hole in these guys, and came out flat. And you look at this Seattle offense that was good last year. I mean, it was. Geno Smith was good last year. He won comeback player of the year because he came back from being a shitty quarterback, which I think is lame, but it is what it is. But this Seahawks offense against a no-name Rams defense outside of Aaron Donald. That's it. That's all that's on that defense. Aaron Donald. They managed 180 total yards. 180 total yards. Both teams had 9 drives, but the Rams doubled up the Seahawks in time of possession, 40 minutes to 20 minutes. They also ran 32 more plays than the Seahawks did, 78 to 46. But here's the thing. The Rams got 27 first downs. The Seahawks only got 13. But the Rams had 17 third downs, and they converted on 11 of them. That is not going to happen against a San Francisco 49ers defense.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And the San Francisco defense is significantly better than Seattle's defense. And what San Francisco can do that Seattle can't is rush the quarterback. And so I think that the Rams are going to try and go in against the 49ers with the same kind of game plan. Like you said, they ran the ball 40 times. Were they successful running it? No. They averaged 2.3 yards a carry because they got 92 yards. But they were converting their third downs, which if you're only averaging 2.3 yards a rush, are going to be long third downs. Again, that's not something that's sustainable against a 49ers defense that shut down a Steelers offense that, while we don't know how good Kenny Pickett is, it's still an offense that was performing in the preseason and an offense that many predicted would be significantly better than they were last year. The Rams struggle against the 49ers defense anyway, and now they don't have Cooper Kupp, and they have a patchwork offensive line. Like, I do think that this game is going to get ugly. And that's not me being a homer for the 49ers. It's just the reality of the situation. This Rams team brought in 50 rookies to camp. 50. 50. Like, the talent disparity is unreal. And I know what the Rams did in week 1. It's not happening in week 2.
Yeah, and you just look at the history with the Niners and what they've owned the Rams for the last 4 years or whatever it's been. Obviously, the one game they needed to beat them, and that's the one victory they had in the NFC Championship game. But for the most part, Kyle owns McVay during the regular season. The player I think is good that's going to really explode in this game is Deebo Samuel. So we had a pretty pedestrian game last week. They gave 5 catches for 55 yards. Mm-hmm. But his last 6, including the playoffs against the Rams, he has 36 catches for 578 yards and 6 total TDs. I feel like this is a Deebo game. Mm-hmm. Just kind of feels like a Deebo game to me. And the way the Niners ran their offense last week, Ayuk had 8 targets, Deebo had 7, Kittle had 6, McCaffrey had 5, and then Jennings and Eli Mitchell each had 1 in the passing game, which is fine for me. You got those 4 studs, throw them the ball. I'm fine with that game plan, and Jennings and whoever else can kind of get the leftovers here. But I feel like it's going to be similar. I think they're going to rely on those 4 guys again, and I just see Deebo, whether he gets a few on the ground or whatever, I think he's going to have a really, really big game and be the guy that kind of breaks through for the Niners. Bosa also has a lot of success against the Rams too. He's got 32 pressures and 6.5 sacks in the last 5 against them, and he had 3.5 sacks against the Rams in the 2 games last year. So Bosa had maybe a quiet game for him, and as he's working his way back here. But I think those are the two guys that I think the stars are going to have nice days. I could see Bosa getting a sack or two, and like I said, Debo having his breakout game of the year.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at the Seahawks offensive performance against the Rams in week 1, Kenneth Walker ran the ball 12 times for 64 yards, which is a 5.3 yard average. There was yardage to be had on the ground. They just couldn't continue to run because they got down so big in the second half and they had to throw. And for whatever reason, that passing offense was wildly unsuccessful. They had a total of, what was it, 95 passing yards because of 17 yards taken away due to 2 sacks, which is an average of 3.4 yards per pass. So obviously that Seattle offense was on the struggle bus all day against the Rams. A no-name defense again outside of Aaron Donald. We mentioned it on the last show. My favorite clip from week 1 was hearing Geno yell, "Oh my God," as Aaron Donald bore down upon him in the pocket. But like I said, I don't think the Seattle team is as good as people thought they would be. I also don't think they're as bad as they showed in week 1. I don't think the Rams are as bad as people thought they would be. I think Sean McVay is a great coach, but also I don't think they're anywhere near as good as it appeared to be in week 1. So to me, you look at that week 1 game between those two and you go, I can't take anything away from this in terms of trying to figure out what's going to happen between these two teams, the 49ers and the Rams, because like I said, the talent disparity is so large that outside of catastrophic injuries, I don't foresee any way that the Rams could pull out any kind of victory in this game. In fact, the 49ers are 8.5-point favorites. And I would venture, I would still bet that. I would bet the Rams getting 8.5 because what's the outside of that NFC Championship game, I think the average margin of victory for Kyle Shanahan against the Sean McVay-led LA Rams in the regular season, I think the average margin of victory is 10. So it's more than one score. So again, you just have to be realistic, right? And I guarantee Rams fans are realistic. Maybe some of them aren't, but the 49ers should not enter this game with the same mindset that I think the Seahawks did, which is we're going to dog walk this team. And I don't think they will, because I think this team is focused on the end goal, which is the Super Bowl. So I don't think they're going to go in with the attitude that we're going to dog walk them, but I do think that they will go in and dog walk them at the home away from home, SoFi Stadium. They're wearing their home reds. It's like they know.
You know where my brain's going right now, and anybody who follows me or listens to the show knows I can be pessimistic, but my brain right now, I'm trying to tell yourself, Al, things can go wrong. Don't go there. Don't think good thoughts, but I'm still doing it. Are the Niners going to have this division wrapped up by Thanksgiving? It's kind of what I feel like right now. Kind of where my head's going.
I would not at all be surprised.
Yeah. The way, again, I just feel like, and I know it's like, okay, it was one game. It was week 1. Ellie, you just said week 1 could be a mirage. I understand all that. But I just feel like this team, you talk about what McCaffrey said. George Kittle talked about their window earlier in the offseason or in the preseason, whatever it was. This team understands the assignment. They understand the importance of this year. And I thought what they did in week 1 showed that they're not going to take their foot off the gas. Like, they're out there with a purpose. And I think they're going to go out and they're going to, for sure, I think, beat the Rams, the Giants, and the Cardinals. I mean, it's a major upset if they lose to any of those 3 teams. Then you're 4-0 going into that Dallas game. And I don't see the Rams or the Cardinals as having any chance. And the Seahawks got some tough games, man. Seahawks are going to Detroit this week. They lose that game and they end up 0-2. And the Niners are 2-0, which we expect them to be. I mean, let's go.
Off to the races,
let's go. Seattle, you get an 0-2 hole. You got to play the Niners twice still.
They got to play Dallas and Dallas Eagles later in the season.
They have to play Dallas. They have to play. They have to go to the Ravens. They have to go to the Bengals. Like that's tough for Seattle.
Yeah.
They're not. So can 10-7, sure, but 9-8, I think they're going to be in that range. And I really am looking at Thanksgiving now. That Thanksgiving game against the the Seahawks before. We were talking about it, like, are they going to win? Now I'm thinking, does it matter? That's honestly where my brain's going right now. And if, again, I know I'm typically pessimistic, but I just feel as confident in this team as I have in a really, really, really long time. Like maybe like Harbaugh years, like 2013-ish.
And we talk about week 1 being a possible mirage for teams. There was nothing that San Francisco did in week 1 that they weren't doing to end the season last year. They're just picking up right where they left off. So again, it's not like there were questions and they answered them right. And I guess there were with Brock Purdy, like what's Brock going to look like in his first game back from the injury? All of that. Was Brock Purdy a mirage? But this team, right? This team just picked up exactly where they left off to end last season. And I don't see any reason why what they did to Pittsburgh isn't what they can do to pretty much any team. And again, it is the NFL and any given Sunday, right? And I understand that, but like you said, Al, the confidence level I have in this team is untouchable right now.
Brian, they've won.
And we'll have to see.
You take out the Josh Johnson game, which they didn't have a chance to compete when you're throwing Josh Johnson on the field. They've won 13 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Like I was going through stuff this week, I'm like, holy shit, when was the last time they lost? The last time they lost, minus the debacle and then it's a championship game, was to the Chiefs in week 7 of last year. It's the last time the team lost.
First game with the Niners, but had only been there for 3 days?
Yeah. I mean, just again, you just have to be. I cannot wait until Sunday. I can't wait to watch this team come out. I'm confident that they're going to blow the doors off of people, and it's fun for what's been kind of, even the last couple of years. It ended really well, but it started out really stressful.
Yes,
3-4 and 3-5. Those couple of years it was, and then the year before was really stressful. 2019 was a lot of fun, but in the beginning it was a little ugly. Now I just feel like this is, again, it has that feel of 2012, 2013. It has that feel of the 90s teams. It has the feel of some of the 80s teams. It's just got that real dominant feel, and it's awesome.
Yeah, this feels like 2019, but even better to start the season. Again, week 1, we got to get to week 2, but man, like I said, I don't look at the schedule and especially after that performance on week 1, I can't find anywhere on the schedule where there's a game where like they're probably going to lose that game, right? Now, again, week 1, everybody's healthy.
Yeah,
that's going to change. Hopefully they get excellent injury luck because they deserve it. They're owed it, I feel like, from the football gods, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like I said, what team is better right now? Richard Sherman says nobody. So I'm going to go with Uncle Sherm on that one.
I think I agree. All right, Brian, we'll be back recording after the game on Sunday. We'll have that out on Monday.
Yes, sir.
We'll react to it all, which would be a 45-10 win for the Niners.
Whew.
Let's say 35-10. Let's say 35-10.
All right. So I'm going to go. Yeah, I'll go with, I think there's no reason why they can't again score over 30. So I'm going to go 31-13.
So we both think it's going to be a big win. I think most people do. So, all right, guys, we'll see what happens. We'll be back to break it all down after. For Brian, I'm Al.
Later.